Good morning. Man, not related to our Bible study, but I'm running a few minutes late because we found this video memory on Facebook of 8 years ago of almost 3-year-old Judah rattling on for 8 minutes, just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And it's hilarious. And some old memories in there of just him talking about Papa Bear and Anthony and talking about Cameron living downstairs and talking about Uncle Mikey who wears big boots. I have little boots, but he has big boots. And yeah, quite cute hearing stuff from the heart of a little boy who doesn't stop talking. So we are in Mark chapter 13. And we're going to start in verse 24. But in those days, after the tribulation, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars of heaven will fall, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then he will send his angels to gather together his elect from the four winds, from the farthest parts of the earth to the farthest parts of heaven. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So, this will bring up an interesting conversation. The gathering of the sheep and the goats. The rapture of the church. We have two events. And really, the gathering of the sheep and the goats would coincide with the second coming of Jesus. We have the rapture of the church. We see two different events that share some similarities, but they're different. And I think many would like to try and mush them together and make them all one event. The hard part is that Scripture, in various places, describes details that would contradict each other. And this is how you end up with the necessity, really, of two separate events. One, the gathering together of the church. One, the gathering together of the believers during the tribulation. And the gathering together, really, of all people to separate these sheep and the goats. So backing up to Matthew chapter 25, verse 31. So this is a good cross-reference for us. Matthew 25:31, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the holy angels. So this is when the Son of Man comes. He's coming with his glory. He's coming with his angels. This is the second coming. And he says he'll sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him. They'll separate one from the other as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. He'll set the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. Right? And so, I don't need to read the whole sheep and the goats account, but we know that he gathers them all together, separates believers from unbelievers. This is after his second coming. Now, if we want to flip to Matthew 24 in there, it also talks about no one knows the day or the hour. And there's a day when he's going to come and take people all away. Now, there's a great parallel in Luke we're going to go look to with, I think, even some better detail. But he says, as in the days of Noah, they were eating and drinking, marrying, giving marriage. Noah entered ark, and they did not know until the flood came and took them all away. And so now he talks about two men will be in the field. One will be taken, one left. Two women grinding the mill. One will be taken, one will be left. Watch, therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. Now, one last passage for you guys. If you're note takers, take the notes. I'm giving you parallel Matthew 25, sheep and the goats, and then contrasting. That was Matthew 24. But again, Matthew 24 is just a parallel. It's a little bit longer. So it's the same sermon. Excuse me. I'll fix that. It's the same sermon, but Matthew records more. Now, Luke 17 is not the same sermon at all, but it is a parallel teaching. Now, let's see here. Sandy, Susie, I'm just thinking you guys have been with me for quite a while now, right? And you guys have probably heard me tell some of the same stories, the same illustrations, right? I mean, over time, your pastor, he uses the same stuff. And so Jesus, he told the same sermons. So that's something also, we'll see in the Gospels. We need to remember that just because you see the same thing in two Gospels, it doesn't always mean it was the same day, same sermon. Matthew 24 and Mark 13, those are the same sermon. Where now Luke 17 is a different sermon. And sometimes that's helpful because, again, he'll add details that maybe he didn't include. So he talks about the coming kingdom, right? And let's see here. As lightning flashes in verse 24 from one part on our head into the other, so also the Son of Man will be in his day. He's going to now describe an event that's like lightning. Something's going to happen, and it's going to happen fast. Now listen, he says, as it was, verse 26, in the days of Noah, so it'll be in the days of the Son of Man. They ate, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the days of Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. So that's what he said in the Olivet Discourse. But now he talks about Lot. Verse 28, likewise it was in the days of Lot. They ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. But on the day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. The emphasis here is this. Sometimes I think we get caught up like it's going to be like the days of Noah, and we think about the wickedness. Because there was wickedness in the times of Noah before the flood, and there was wickedness in the times of Lot before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. But when we read the text, does that sound like what he's emphasizing? Wickedness? They ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they built. He's not describing wickedness as the sign. What he's describing is monotony, right? Like just things going on. Life's just cruising. You're buying, you're selling, eating, drinking, marrying, giving in marriage. Like life's just kind of going. And then boom, destruction. Now, even so, it'll be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. So there's going to be an event, bear with, where life is just going on like normal. La-di-da. And then something's going to happen. In that day, who's on the housetop in his goods house, let him not come down. And likewise, what is in the field, let him not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Now, this is where if I just jump down to 34, I tell you that in that night, there will be two men in one bed. The one will be taken, the other will be left. FYI, it says two. The word men is added there. So it's just two in a bed. So two people, man and woman. But two in a bed. One's taken, one's left. Two women, two people, right? Grinding at the mill. So again, they add all the people, but just two will be grinding at the mill, one taken, one left. Two will be in the field, one taken and one left. Now here's the deal. I want to back up to Mark 13. In Mark 13, in those days, after the tribulation, great tribulation, the sun will be darkened, the moon's not giving its light, the stars of heaven will fall, powers in heaven will be shaken, and then they'll see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory, and then he will send out his angels to gather his elect. We're describing two events now, aren't we? In Luke 17, Jesus was warning about an event that would happen during a season of regular life. Buying and selling, eating and drinking, planting, building. Life's just going on, and then boom, out of nowhere, something comes like lightning. No time to prepare for it, no time to dodge it, duck, no time to get right before the Lord. Something's coming. And he says, and it's going to happen. Here's kind of the interesting picture, is the idea of being in the bed, grinding at the mill, and being in the field. It actually like talks about like three different times during the day. Like, in a sense, 8 hours, dividing the day up into 8-hour thirds. And you'd find these events typically being done And it might be, I don't know if I got it forward or backwards. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, mill in the morning and field in the afternoon, but in bed in the middle of the night. So this event will strike worldwide because it's happening in one moment, and people who are at nighttime, people who are in the daytime, people who are in the afternoon time, right? It happens all at once, and two people are in the bed, one all of a sudden is just gone. Two people were grinding at the mill, all of a sudden one is gone. So some want to take that and call that the sheep and the goats. But I have a big problem with that because, firstly, Jesus describes it as a time of just monotony. Like, monotony is the word, right? Looking, just things just kind of going. Da, 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 da. Mark 13 is describing the sun gone, the moon gone, the stars gone, great tribulation. Those are two different scenarios, aren't they? Next, from what we know about the great tribulation, right? This is the end of the great tribulation. Jesus, the mark of the beast has already taken place. And most of you guys are at least a little familiar, right, with the mark of the beast. So do you expect someone who's taken the mark of the beast and someone who's supposed to be beheaded because they haven't taken the mark of the beast, sleeping in bed together, grinding at a mill together, working in a field together? And let's not forget, by this time when all the bowl judgments are done, there are no fields, right? I don't know if there's any grain to be ground. So to me, many want to try and join these two events together. Jesus comes at one time only, and there's only ever one gathering. Well, the Bible's painting two pictures here. And either they're contradictory or they're two separate events. Mark 13, 24 to 27 describes to us the second coming of Jesus Christ, his gathering together, and the separation then of the sheep and the goats. Those who are believers during the tribulation, whom he will bless, and they'll enter into the millennial kingdom, and those who are unbelievers during the tribulation. That's a whole other situation. In Luke 17, what we're finding is the rapture of the church. It's going to happen right now. Hey, have any of you guys actually bought anything lately? Now it's summertime. Within the last few months, have any of you planted? Do you know anyone who's getting married? Have you eaten or drank lately? This is the season, right now. We are in the season in which the rapture will occur. It's life's going on in monotony, just boom, 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 day to day, la-di-da. And as I always feel, I always think like we're going to get on the other end of some big stuff like COVID. Everything was kind of tense for a while. And life's kind of getting back to normal. And I think it's going to be during one of these lulls where things just get kind of normal again. Might I give you guys one last challenge? Maybe it's not all of you. Maybe it is. Do you remember what it was like May, June 2020? Wanting to get out of your house, wanting to get back to church. How exciting it was to finally meet together as a church. How exciting it was to finally get back in the building. But that wears off. And it just gets back to la-di-da, day to day. And I think it is going to be during a lull when the rapture happens. It's going to be at a time when people aren't expecting it because, things were really tense and we were looking and watching. Russia's invading Ukraine. And then a lull. So the Bible speaks of two events. People differ in opinions on exactly where to place them all, but I think it only makes sense that it has to take place before the Great Tribulation, because once the Great Tribulation comes and the Antichrist gets revealed and all these things, it's kind of like, well, that's not going to be day-to-day buying and selling. And once people start taking a mark of the beast and you're getting beheaded if you don't take the mark, I just don't expect a person with a mark and without a mark to be sharing a bed or to be grinding in the field or to be working or grinding grinding at the mill, working in the field. So it's a time like now. Any day, we can see God coming back, not to the earth, but to the clouds, meeting us partway, coming out to greet us. And we'll go meet with him in the air and be forevermore with him, that where he is, we can be also. All right. So there's a little bit about the second coming and the gathering of the sheep and the goats in contrast to the rapture of the church prior to the tribulation. All right. Hope you like your eschatology lesson for the day. And I agree with what Sandy said earlier. The again and again, I need the again and again. I will tell you guys, closing note, I think God's pretty smart. And God always knew I was going to be a pastor. And I think I've always been geared this way. And so I have an unfair advantage, right? I mean, if God's going to use me to teach, then obviously God has enabled me to learn. And I'm thankful. But even with that, what I'm getting at is this. Even with that, eschatology for years, I was already being asked to teach Sunday messages at my church. I was super involved in everything. And still I would have told you, man, eschatology is still like getting all this stuff figured out, because you really have to have like a full comprehensive view of the Bible, because, a Bible study is just teaching one chapter. But when it comes to eschatology, end times, the rapture, the tribulation, it's the whole Bible is just sprinkled with stuff. And I think one of the reasons people come up with false views on the end times is because they kind of come up with their opinions before really getting an overarching understanding and seeing how they all play in together. And so it is, I could see how someone could come up with something if they just read Mark. When you compare Mark to Matthew, that helps. But then when you throw in Luke 17 like we did, it's like, okay, like that's describing a different event. So there has to be more than one. And so yes, we need the repetition, because I remember how long it is. And it's still something I have to brush up on and remind myself about. And not like there's not 100 other subjects I'm trying to be brushed up on. So yeah, hear it again and hear it again. Staying in the Word and staying in good Bible teachings, sermons, podcasts by, good Bible teachers. It's the best way to just keep you moving down a good path of solid doctrine. So I didn't make my post this morning, but I was going to make a post just simply saying, that the McShane reading plan, it's just like by just staying in your Bible and reading those few chapters a day, even if you don't think you got anything out of it, just by hearing the Word of God and moving your way through it, it's just continually putting it in there so that it's always moving around in your head, so that you can easily be drawn back to it when false stuff rears its head. All right. God bless you guys. That's it. Time to go do some homeschooling with the kids while Nicole is away at the Pastor's Wives Conference. I will see you guys around.